Longtime viewers and listeners to and of the program will remember I was against playoff expansion, but as I was against it, I said it's not all bad. There are going to be some good things that come from playoff expansion. Then I said the same thing about the portal. Then I said the same thing about NIL to a certain extent. Well, I already voiced my concerns about the bad stuff. Here's the good thing that brought. This season's going to be insane. I've never been more convinced. I just got off the road. I was at Oregon and Alabama over the weekend. We'll be on the road this week. I have seen many different campi, plural of campus. I have seen many different practi, plural of practices. I'm telling you, there's not much separation. I'm telling you, like the number 15 team in the country could win the national title this year. And we just haven't said that. We're jam-packed. We're high atop a sizzling downtown Nashville, Tennessee. Why does my voice sound so skippy? Why does my energy level sound like it's high? Well, as of this morning, it is game week of week 0 of college football. That's why. Need I say more? Oh, there is more. We've got predictions on the show tonight. I am doing my conference predictions. I'm doing season predictions. I am not waiting any longer, because just in case Iowa State goes and wins the national championship, I wanted to go ahead and predict it before they play a football game. We've got fall camp intel. Like, listen to how heavy that packet of paper is hitting the table. I was at a couple of practices over the past couple of days, so I'll let you know what things look like at Oregon and Alabama. We got some stuff on Georgia. I got some stuff on Clemson tonight. I can't fit it all in the show. We have got several announcements coming this week. All good announcements, no bad announcements, like Bradley's not getting fired or anything like that I know of. I don't want him to get complacent, but I think Bradley's safe this week. But, man, we got a lot to roll out. So you need to be following on the socials, at Josh Pate CFP. Just make sure you're following there because I can't announce all this stuff on the show because it would clog the show up. So I've got all that. Or you notice I listed 14 bullet points, and only now am I ready to reveal to you that, yeah, I am going to talk about that ridiculous Big Ten alleged playoff expansion proposal. I will talk about it. But you know my entire philosophy on this, and that is, if it's June, okay. We're not leading the show with playoff expansion or conference realignment nonsense, for lack of a stronger term, when there's real football to talk about. And as far as I can tell, we're halfway through fall camps, so there's a lot of football to talk about. So, yeah, we'll put that like this piece of paper. Very end of the show. That's when we're going to do that. They're watching us in Salina, Texas, Pine Mountain, Georgia. Hey, Fort Payne, Alabama, Spokane, Washington, tuned in. Listen, I'm going to put a lot of pressure on the crew. We're doing our show from Penn State Tuesday night. And the reason I say a lot of pressure is because, Jesse, we got like a piece of equipment that we need to come in, and we got to make sure it comes in. So knock on fake wood here. It comes in. We're going to be up in State College Tuesday. I'm going to go check out Penn State. I'm going to do that to James Franklin's door. We'll see if he opens the door. May even have him on the show, I'm told. Imagine that, man, in the middle of fall camp, taking time out for us. But yeah, we're going to do the show from Penn State Tuesday night, hopefully live. So again, it is a week full of announcements, and we're going to be on the road during that week. So make sure you're following at Josh Pate CFB. So let's lead the show with predictions tonight. This is not the kind of thing where I say, hey, we're going to predict, and then I wait an hour and a half. I am going to lead the show with it. Big Ten predictions. We have waited and waited long enough. How's this thing going to go? We are gearing up for 3 straight here. 3 straight is a streak. At 2 straight, that's not a streak, contrary to what the Chicago papers and the Detroit papers have told you. No. It would be a streak if you won 3 national titles in a row. They could do it. Ohio State got good odds. Penn State closely behind. Oregon 3rd. And then there's a drop-off in the odds to win the Big Ten. And then Oregon 3rd. Michigan way down below Oregon 4th. USC. And then there's a little drop-off again to like your Nebraskas, your Iowas, Indiana, Illinois. I think the last time one of these top 4 did not win this league was like 2015, Michigan State, I want to say. So it's been a little while. Tier 1, I think, is 3 deep. Tier 2, you could say, is just Michigan, and then it's Tier 3, or you could say there is no Tier 2, Michigan's part of Tier 3, or you could say Michigan's part of Tier 1, and still there's no Tier 2. However you want to classify it, I think Michigan's going to be a much different team in November than they are in late August, early September anyway. So here are some things I think I know about the Big Ten as we get into predictions here. Penn State, there are 2 seasons for Penn State this year. And they're 2 different themes, basically. And they're not interested in talking about the first one. The first season for Penn State is, let's make sure everything validates. Let's make sure they are who we think they are. And they will be. They're not going to be a bad team. So they'll be a contender. They'll be favored in just about every game they play, maybe outside of at Ohio State. They're capable of winning all of them. Let's say all that happens. Let's say, for the sake of argument and Jesse's conscience, they even get through to Indianapolis, they win the Big Ten. That's season one. And that's a good season. That's great. That's not what they're looking for at Penn State. Candidly, this is one of those very unique situations where there is not job security pressure, but there's competitive pressure to go win the national championship. At the very least, win the Big Ten. And even if they do that, that's just when the second season starts. And the second season is basically, okay, Penn State got through the regular season and they were good enough to do that. What if someone does in the playoffs what Ohio State did last year? What if Texas gets in and revs the engine? What if it's a Georgia in there? What if it's an Oregon in there? But they rev the engine and you find out their top-end potential is better than yours. What if your best is A-, but someone's got the talent level to be an A or an A+, and you run up against them in the playoff? That's the second season. I think staff attrition for Ohio State is as big as the roster attrition. That's another thing I think I know. Yeah, Ohio State won a national title last year. Yeah, they're losing a lot to the draft. That's what happens when you're really good. That's the trade-off. But I'm telling you, I know in Columbus they're keenly aware of how good Chip Kelly was, how important he was, how good Jim Knowles was. They don't speak his name anymore, but how important he was. Those guys are gone. And it's not like I don't believe Matt Patricia is able to coach this game, or that I don't believe that when you elevate from within, especially, that you've got, the wherewithal and you've got the system knowledge. Brian Hartline's the new OC there now. It's not that I don't believe that. There's a difference in those guys being good or really good versus them being championship caliber and your program being championship caliber. It'd be one thing if you're elevating those guys and they're coaching a bunch of players who are just returning, but you got so much newness everywhere. That's part of the fun. That's part of the challenge for Ryan Day. That's part of the fun. You remember when we were up there in spring, part of the reason he emphasized, hey, I've got benefit of the doubt on my side now. I asked him, what's the difference? He said, I've got benefit of the doubt on my side now. That's invaluable. Because now you make all these moves and people just assume you know what you're talking about because you won a national championship, whereas before you were an idiot. You got second-guessed 8 days out of the week. The third thing I think I know about this conference, Tier 3 is the story for the Big Ten. Okay, that's why I said you know that Ohio State and Oregon and Penn State in some shape, form, or fashion are the Tier 1 of this conference. Tier 2, is it Michigan or is it nobody? I'm looking at Tier 3, regardless of how you think those first 4 teams pan out. Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Nebraska, USC. I'd throw Washington in there. Those are all teams with win totals of 7.5 to 8.5. And so that's Tier 3 of the conference. Now, historically, meaning the last decade or so, that hasn't mattered because no one in that tier has been a threat to jump up and most of the times bite one of the top teams, but especially contend for the title. Could Nebraska contend for the league title this year? Could USC compete for the league title this year? I don't mean upset someone who could compete for it. I mean outright compete for it, because that's been the difference to me still in the competitive landscape of the Big Ten versus the SEC. SEC competitive depth-wise goes a lot deeper than the Big Ten, or it has. Is that the case this year? The fourth thing, as we talk about Drew Aller, talk about Julian Sayin, Bryce Underwood, the most intriguing quarterbacks in this conference may be on the West Coast. Dante Moore at Oregon, Damon Williams at Washington, and the latter of whom's just being talked about even less than the former, and neither of them are being talked about to the degree that the others are. Those two could be bona fide studs this year, and they're not being talked about as much, and it's pretty obvious why, because they play halfway to Russia. And so, Big Ten Media Center being where it is, they're just not going to have the baked-in brand name. They're not going to be the focus in preseason. That's okay, though. I think they're both really good. I got very little doubt about either one of them, and they may fundamentally impact this league title race. And the fifth thing I think I know is that patience will pay off for Bryce Underwood. Now, that may not mean that you win 10 games this year. But I do think patience will pay off in the sense that that dude's really good now. That's why he's going to win the job up there. He will be really good, has however long as he's at Michigan. I also think that you've got this whole NCAA thing behind you now. I don't know how worried they were about that, but it's behind them now. You just get to know, okay, we can see as far as the eye can see on the landscape. Future is ours. And we got this quarterback, but the point being, if they start to trend up middle of the season and later, Think about what that does for the roster construction of the 2026 team and beyond. If they win in 2025, to me, it's a bonus. I may not think that way if I were a Michigan fan, but I'm just sitting down here in Nashville. I would think, dude, if we can win 9 or 10 games and surprise people, that's great. But I'm thinking 2026 and beyond because I could win another national title with that guy. A few of the favorite win totals I have in the Big Ten. I've bet these, so we're on all these. We've talked about some of them so far. Nebraska, over 7.5 wins. I cannot believe this number is still available at FanDuel. Nebraska, over 7.5 wins. We've got it graded as the easiest schedule in Big Ten play. I don't think the market is properly pricing in the offensive elevation that's going to happen here. I think most people expect, Dylan Raiola another year in. Maybe people know Dana Holgerson is there, maybe they don't. I just think beyond that, man, the supporting cast, like the wide receiver room here, the tailback room, I think that the overall elevation of this offense is not being properly priced in. They are going to fly past 7.5 wins. I firmly believe that. I believe the opposite about Wisconsin. As much as I love the alpaca farms up there, I believe that Wisconsin under 5.5 wins. As much as I believed it in the spring, I still believe it now. We've got that graded as the toughest strength of schedule in the Big Ten. They face one team in conference play with worse odds than them. They play 9 conference games, famously, if you haven't listened to Coach Sig lately. 9 conference games up there. They only play 1 conference game against a team with odds worse than them. They play Bama in out-of-conference play. And I don't really know what the identity of the team is still. So I'm going under on Wisconsin, and I'm going under on Michigan as well. As much as I believe in the future of the team, I could just see 8-4 this year. And frankly, I could see an 8-4 that kind of goes like last year, where you scale up towards the end of the year. Who knows if that includes a win over Ohio State or not. But I could just see finishing strong at Michigan State, Purdue, at Northwestern, at Maryland. Even if you lose close to Ohio State, you just finish strong. Bryce Underwood got better and better as the weeks went on. You finish 8-4, okay. And everyone's excited about next year. But I'm going under 8.5 with Michigan win total. Here we go. Conference championship matchup. I've got as a rematch of the regular season. This game, I believe, is going to happen in week 5 in Happy Valley. Oregon goes to Penn State, and Penn State will be favored in that game, and it'll be a whiteout. I think we're going to get a rematch of that game in Indianapolis. And I've got Penn State versus Oregon for the Big Ten Championship, and I've got Penn State over Oregon for the Big Ten Championship. So James Franklin taking home the Big Ten crown. That gets them easily a top 4 seed in the playoffs. So they'll have a first-round bye, and the runway will be set up for him. Oregon's probably in the playoff too, just, not in that 1 seed, which didn't do them any favors last year anyway, so whatever. But I got Penn State over Oregon. I think it's a rematch of the regular season. Ohio State's very much in this. I'm not down on them. I think it actually may come down to tiebreaker that decides who goes. And my sleeper in this conference that I didn't really talk about, Michigan State, I think, is a much better team than the market will give them credit for. I think they're the kind of team, since they play all the contenders basically, that bites one of them, but themselves does not have the consistency and performance to compete for the league title this year. Just keep an eye on them. Kind of like a pest. This keeps buzzing in your ear. That's Michigan State to me this year. We'll probably be on the road to see some of these teams, and it will be thanks to Quick Trip. We appreciate them. We got a little announcement coming up later in the show. We're going to announce the tour destination this year. We're going to announce the week 1 destination and just flat out announce the tour name this year. It's a big night on campus here at Pate State. That's why I'm trying to have a little tempo about my voice. But Quick Trip, fueling us, partnering with us, loving us, caring for us, understanding us. I just got a text, which this is a complete breach of confidentiality. It probably violates the agreement that we have with them. This is a text from one of our close good friends at Quick Trip. I'm on the record as saying Farmageddon should only be played in states that have breakfast pizza. With that being said, welcome back college football. What are your thoughts? How do you not get romantic about Quick Trip? Oh, by the way, cold brew on tap. Very, very, very fairly priced fuel out front. Quick Trip, there's a reason that we committed to them, and there's a reason that they are the fuel provider for the fall tour. Thank you, Quick Trip. Let's move on. In case you didn't notice, it's prediction night around here. It's time to predict the SEC. Let's not waste any more time. All right, Alabama and Georgia have won this thing 10 of the last 11 years. Let me repeat for the people that think this is like the most competitively balanced league in America. Bama and Georgia have won this thing 10 out of the last 11 years. LSU 2019 being the exception. So when people have chanted SEC, they should have just chanted UGA or BAMA, because that's really been the standard bearer. However, Texas is favored to win the league. Texas is number one in the JP poll. Texas is number one in the AP poll. We're going to go ahead and play the season anyway, but they got Texas in a really good spot here. I have never seen depth of contention like this. Bradley, keep this up for a second, immunity. So if you look at the odds to win this league, people have always said the SEC is deep. What they've meant by that is the number one team when they go play the number 8 or 9 team. That's a tougher opponent than the 8 or the 9 in the Big Ten or the ACC. Like, there's quality of competition, but there has not been depth of contention. Depth of contention has been void because there's been an alpha or maybe a 1A, 1B. It's normally been Bama or Georgia or in 2019 LSU. And you've known there's no way the number 6 team in this league is going to beat that number 1 for the SEC championship. This year's different. I promise you, I've not seen it like this. This is a year where Texas is favored to win it, but if you go number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7 is Ole Miss, I can make a case for them. Oklahoma's number 9. I got him top 10 in my JP poll, so you know good and well I could make a case for Oklahoma. South Carolina's down there at 11, and they may have the best offensive and defensive player in the league by the end of the year. So the depth of contention, the amount of teams that can legitimately win this conference, I've never seen it this deep. I don't know that Meemaw ever saw it that competitively deep. So the separation or the cannibalization, that's the theme in this league this year and every year. Do we have a situation where by week 8, you look at me and I look at you and say, dude, no one's beating Georgia. No one's beating Bama. No one's beating Texas. Or they're on a collision course, but outside of those 2 teams, no one's going to touch them. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think it's going to be another cannibalization special. However, we do reserve the right to watch the games and change our minds. You've got Hugh Freeze, got to get it done this year. Brent Venables, got to get it done this year. I'm going to talk about Brian Kelly in a second. He's kind of got to get it done this year, but is on a little bit different footing than the other 2. So here's some things I think I know about the SEC. I think I know Georgia's offensive line is the most important unit in this entire league, because if Georgia's offensive line is, frankly, what they think it is, Georgia should be priced to win the league. I think it would be fair to favor them to win the league. If their offensive line is back to being dominant, if it's back to being a plus unit, it was not last year, and yet they trusted their development, they trusted their personnel, they trusted their philosophy. They did not freak out and go attack the transfer portal. They did it at wide receiver. They did not do that at offensive line. And the stuff that I'm hearing out of fall camp is good. We got to wait and see, but it's good. I did not believe that they'd struggle 2 years in a row to that degree. But if that is the case, think about what they can do philosophically. And they play Bama at home. They play Texas at home. They play Ole Miss at home. They play Florida in Jacksonville. If they can just lean on teams, if they can take over games, like if they can play complementary the way they want to, not only does it impact them, it impacts the entire league race. If Georgia's not that, if that offensive line is just average, well, then you're putting a new quarterback in an unwinnable situation. It probably never allows your ground game to make way for balance offensively, which means that wide receiver room you're so excited about doesn't ever pan out, and your number 1 receiver's got like 670 yards at the end of the year, and you're asking how. That offensive line at Georgia predicates a lot of how the rest of this conference will play out. I think I know there's minimal separation between Tier 1 and Tier 2, and that's very abnormal because, as I said a second ago, I won't belabor this point a whole lot, normally there is separation in the SEC. Normally, you've got, historically, like under Saban, it would be Bama and sometimes no one else. Or if it was someone else, it would be Georgia. And then LSU occasionally pops up. But there was separation. And for Alabama to lose, it grabbed the nation's attention when they lost. There is no upset in this league this year featuring those top 10 or 11 teams that's going to turn people's heads 360 degrees on their shoulders. Or if that does happen, you just hadn't been paying attention. Because the competitive depth in this league is, or the competitive balance, I guess, in the league is unlike anything I've ever seen. Third thing I think I know. I'm going to pop the paper on this. I think I know either Oklahoma or Florida will make the playoff, and I think you're laughing at me, which I've asked you not to do, especially if you're around other people. But judging by the interactions I've had at my local gym, I am somewhat on an island with this, but that's okay. Island living is some of the best living. Just ask the late Jimmy Buffett. So Florida and Oklahoma, I both have power rated as top 10 teams. They both have incredibly difficult schedules. I believe at least one of them will pierce through. I believe that either one of them is in at 9-3. So you can lose a quarter of your games, and as long as you're there at the end of the year, I think they're going to put you in. I think one of them will be in there. I think that Oklahoma, for example, plays LSU last game of the year. That transitions me to my next thing I think I know. I think Brian Kelly will be the most talked about coach in this league this year. I think Brian Kelly will be the most talked about head coach in the SEC because they are in a position where they should compete for the SEC championship. They should be a prime playoff team. They should be. They reconstructed their roster through the portal about as effectively as anyone in the country. It's LSU already, so they weren't without pieces. It wasn't a poverty program, but they had backslid a little bit. Now, you know, if you watch this show, I could not endorse any more strongly the defensive hires they made last year. This is the second year with Blake Baker at defensive coordinator. I expect quantum leaps of improvement there. You've got a returning quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier. They believe they filled the holes, but they better be right because this is not a team that has started hot. And they play Clemson, Florida, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, and Texas A&M before Halloween. So they've got several losable games before Halloween. They got the Bama game after that. And Brian Kelly is in the most unique kind of pressure spot. It's not like Hugh Freeze. It's not like Brent Venables. Like they haven't fallen off some cliff or anything like that. But it's LSU, and there's no yeah, but. Sometimes teams struggle, and it's like, yeah, but you don't know about the limitation we've been dealing with. There's nothing like that. There's not like they're recovering from crippling NCAA sanctions. Any sanction LSU suffered from, they self-imposed by poor hiring or by poor development. So, like, I think they corrected all that. But here's the follow-up. I'm right. I know I'm right when I say they corrected. And that means a lot of that staff, they're really good. And that front office is really good. And people down there know it. So if you turn in another 8-4 year, I think there's the kind of pressure that people look at you and say, this program entirely is not the problem. We think we've identified the problem. Maybe it's just you. Is that fair? Maybe, maybe not. But that's a unique kind of pressure that I don't think anyone else in this league is under. Now, if it goes sideways, he'll be talked about every week. What if they go pop Clemson 30-17 in week 1 and they get off to a hot start and they're like a one-loss team headed into Tuscaloosa in November? Then Brian Kelly is the talk of the league as well for much different reasons. So this is not a glass half empty thing. No matter how full the glass is, Brian Kelly will be talked about all year long. And they play quality competition all year long. There's not like a 4-week stretch where they disappear from the public eye. So and Brian Kelly and LSU will be in the spotlight. They're expected to do big things. And if they do, it will validate Brian Kelly's existence as the LSU head coach. And if they don't, then it will validate people who think he's a fraud. No matter what, he's going to be talked about a lot. The fifth thing I think I know is Texas A&M versus Texas at the very end of the year. The implications on that game will be as big or bigger than they were last year. I think this has been memory hold a little bit because I don't think most of the college football public remembers how big this game was last year. Texas went and won. It was sort of a boring game, and people have forgotten how it went. Texas versus Texas A&M was played with a trip to Atlanta on the line. And the team that goes to Atlanta is going to be in the playoff. Like A&M was that close to being a playoff team last year. Texas was a playoff team last year, even though they lost in Atlanta. So my point is I believe this game will be as high leverage a game, as implication-ridden a game this year as it was last year. You don't have any problem believing that about Texas. I'm telling you I believe it about Texas A&M as well. Some of my favorite win totals Let's see, 1, 2. Yeah, I've bet all these two. To carry over, we're just talking about him here. I got Texas A&M over 7.5. You talk about market inefficiencies. That's really what you're looking for in win totals. I think the market is failing to identify the skill level overlapping with identity factor here. The market is not failing to know the players Texas A&M has. All of that's always priced in. The skill set, the talent profile of the team overlapping with what I believe their identity will be is such that I believe they'll go over 7.5. I think they'll go over 7.5 to the point where, again, that last week in the season, they are in a position to beat Texas and go to Atlanta, beat Texas and be a playoff team. So clearly, I think their quality is going to be over 7.5. I think Florida is going to be over 7.5. Now, this is where you can't get it out of your mouth before people say, oh, the schedule, though. Guys, I know what the schedule is. So do they. That's why they are an over-under 7.5 win team. And yet, forget about my power ratings. I could call FanDuel up right now. I think you guys would be a little surprised how high they are on Florida. Who knows? Maybe we'll have that conversation in the not-too-distant future. I am betting they're good enough to drill. They are Bruce Willis in Armageddon. You're on an asteroid. It's iron ferrite. It doesn't matter because you're the best driller in the country. And you may break a drill head or two. You may lose Max off into space, and Steve Buscemi may go crazy. But in the end, you drill to 800 feet. In this case, 800 feet is 9-3. And I think they can drill to 9-3 and be a playoff contender. Therefore, I think they're going over 7.5 wins. DJ Lagway, I want to stress, is the key to all this happening because he needs to be healthy. There has to be an under here. I can't just do overs. It's not Christmas. We can't just hand out presents. And I regret to inform you, and if you know this show, you know that this actually does pain me, that I'm going under 5.5 on Arkansas. This sucks. They are the number 3 strength of schedule, according to us. Here's my philosophy on this. I think that over-under 5.5 is the proper number in the market. They got Taylor Green. I mean, they could just surprise people and win 8 games. So that's baked into the possible variance and outcome. Here's my problem. I don't think they're going to have a good year. And if they don't, you get to the middle of November, even early November, if it's already gone wrong. They got Mississippi State at LSU, at Texas A&M, Missouri. And if it's already gone wrong, my concern is they are not playing at their maximum potential. Like the over-under being 5.5 is basically modeling a season out where you get Arkansas all in performance every week. Because you can't forecast injuries and you can't forecast a team kind of mailing in a season. And my concern is if they know, hey, man, we're struggling, we may not even make a bowl, I just worry about the last month of the season because there's a world where it tails off pretty precipitously. And yeah, you're going to lose at LSU and Texas. People expect that anyway. But if Missouri comes in there and pops you at the end of the year, I'll give you one worse. Mississippi State needs a Super Bowl game this year somewhere. And you may be the one conference game that Mississippi State, who hasn't mailed in the season, kind of finds a way to get. It sounds like I'm incredibly down on Arkansas, not as a brand, but as a team this year. If it goes sideways, I think the under 5.5 is the play because I worry about how sideways it could go. And then we have a whole other uncomfortable conversation. All right, let's pick this league title game. I have been to every one of these places just about, either in the spring or throughout fall camp. So I feel good about my read on the league, which of course means that all of these predictions could flame out fantastically. Give me teams that don't play in the regular season. Alabama versus Texas in the conference title game. And I've got Kalen DeBoer versus Steve Sarkisian here. And I think we need to remember that Kalen DeBoer against the combination of Steve Sarkisian and Kirby Smart and Dan Lanning, now sitting at 6-0, so they have yet to beat him. And that was at Washington, and then one game against Kirby last year at Alabama. My point being, Alabama's going to be good. And I got to see him in person yesterday. Texas, I've seen this year. Like both of these teams, I think when the dust settles, will be the best teams in the league. Give me Alabama over Texas for the SEC championship. I'm not saying they've been slept on. I have just been a little caught off guard by, relative to some of these other teams here, how little they've been talked about. Again, they've been talked about. I'm not quite sure people understand how complementary that team can be. I'm not quite sure people understand how dynamic the team is, meaning they can win a lot of different ways. Texas can do that as well. That's why I have them facing off. I got Georgia right in the mix for that thing. I'm slightly down on LSU relative to the rest of the market. Texas A&M I'm in on. I just give the edge to Texas at the end of the year. I'm trying to think. I mean, Florida schedule, I think they're in it, though. OU schedule, I think they're in it. South Carolina, like I said, the one thing that I question, and the South Carolina folks are confident in the wide receiver room, I've still got to see the wide receiver room. So if that's there, then South Carolina can make a lot of noise this year as well. But give me Alabama over Texas for the SEC championship. You know what's terrible right now is we've got like an hour of show left, and I badly need a bathroom break. But we got to push through. I'm not wearing dark pants either, Bradley. So waist up. We do not play favorites on this show. That's a lie. We do it all the time. But we randomly drew the order we were going to go in tonight. No one's going to believe that because there are some harsh accusations that fly around about Pate State here and which conferences get preferable treatment. But this is how the straws were drawn. ACC prediction time. Let's set the table here, shall we? We've got 2 playoff teams from this league last year. Do we think they get 2 in again this year? Do we think that SMU being smoked by Penn State will factor into the committee's decision-making? It shouldn't. Do we think it will? Do we think Clemson can fulfill on their destiny? Do we think Dabo could get the biggest I told you so in the recent history, like the color TV era of the sport? Do we think Florida State is going to be back in not just contention, but relevance? Bill Belichick is the head coach at North Carolina. They've probably got the most workable schedule in the league this side of Virginia, maybe even including Virginia. There's a lot to go over here. What are some things I think I know? What do you think you know about the ACC? I think the lack of quality depth in this league is embarrassing and has been for a while. So this is me hoping it changes this year. Because I look at the Big 12, and it makes sense that the Big 12 doesn't have a bunch of national title caliber programs because of where their recruiting bases are. That has never made sense for the ACC. The ACC is up and down the eastern seaboard. I mean, they've got programs in the state of Florida, Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia. There's one smack dab in the middle of Atlanta. And yet it's been Florida State, and it's really been Clemson, with some Florida State mixed in. Miami has woefully underachieved up until about 5 minutes ago when Mario got there. Virginia Tech has been a letdown. Virginia's been probably perennially the biggest letdown of any of these teams. There's no reason why NC State should. NC State's been good. I don't want to hate on NC State. I'm just saying collectively the league should be a lot deeper than it is. Will it be that deep this year? I think I know that Clemson is a legitimate national championship contender. Now, this sounds like such a no-brainer because they're top 5 in all the polls and stuff like that. The odds board has them way up there. But you know as well as I do, in fact, you may be one of the people that I'm describing that does not believe that Clemson is capable of actually winning it all. Like you think they're capable of winning the ACC, being a good solid team, but you don't think of them as being any more capable of making noise in the playoff this year than they did last year. I think it's a fair reason to doubt them. They were 85th in run defense last year. So that's the thing to watch. Like if they can't stand up better, if they don't play to their talent profile, then no, I'm wrong. And they are not a championship contender. I believe they'll be better there. They made changes at defensive coordinator. Every other place, returning quarterback, returning offensive coordinator, returning head coach, obviously. Every other area they checked the box. Got really good NFL talent, all 3 levels of the defense, but I believe this is also a unique year where there really is no true alpha, like number one with distance between them and the rest of the field type of team. So Penn State, Clemson, like those kinds of teams, this is the year they could actually do more than just make it. They could win the whole thing. The third thing I think I know is I'm still buying Miami. I'm not selling on Miami just because Cam Ward's not there anymore. I think their line of scrimmage play could be the best in the league. And if that's the case, especially in this league, that means you can set yourself apart. Like in the Big Ten, you tell me they're good along the lines of scrimmage. It means a lot. It means something in the SEC when you say, hey, man, they're really good along the lines of scrimmage. Like, they got NFL guys, both lines of scrimmage. When you say that in the ACC, that's a little different buzzsaw. And that's also when you get late in the year and you got to go back-to-back cold weather cities to end the season. And those are your sixth and seventh games in a row to end the year. You got to go to Blacksburg and you got to go to Pitt. If you can go up there and run the ball 54 times and be comfortable doing that, that's how you go grind out wins late in the year. That's how you play more consistently. And you may think to yourself, but Josh, didn't they suck bad defensively last year? And the answer is, oh, they did. They did. They made changes, though. They made changes. Now, I'm going to give you a bold statement here. They hired Corey Heatherman as their defensive coordinator. That's not bold. That just happened. That's a fact. That's on Wikipedia. You can look it up. DB was terrible for them last year. Miami's pass defense was abhorrent. I'm going to tell you, I think it'll be one of the low-key strengths of their team this year. This is one of the bolder things that I'm going to say, but just some feedback I've gotten from down there, the second scrimmage is in the books. I think that pass defense could go from being one of the biggest weaknesses any contending team had in the country at Miami last year to being a net positive and a strength for them this year. If I'm right about that, they're a playoff contender. They're a conference championship contender. Let's go over some of my favorite win totals in the ACC. I can tell the live chat's buzzing over that because I know people are going to doubt that. And that's okay. That's why God makes us play the football games. That's okay. Georgia Tech over 7.5 wins is my favorite win total in this conference. I bet it as soon as FanDuel would let me in the door. I think I camped out like Black Friday style. I camped out for hours outside of FanDuel headquarters in a tent waiting to be let in, not so I could say hey to everyone, just so I could bet Georgia Tech over 7.5. I think they're going to be favored in as many as 10 of their 12 games. The two games they won't be favored in are against Clemson and Georgia. They're both at home. I think they will win one of those games. Like, I got Georgia Tech flying past 7.5. I love them as a team this year. Momentarily, you will know how much I love them. Although, it sounds like they had the worst scrimmage in the history of organized 11-on-11 football yesterday, judging by Brent Key's post-scrimmage press conference. They're right where I want them. They're right where I want them. The way you know a team is about to overachieve is when their head coach makes it a point to publicly tell you they suck right before the season. Brent Key tells me Georgia Tech sucks right before the season. Georgia Tech's going 10-2. Next up, Virginia Tech. I am leaning under 6.5 here, regrettably. There was a lot of portal churn there. And so if they got guys in via the portal and they just magically coalesce, okay, and that's wonderful, I don't know that I can count on that happening. They play two SEC teams back-to-back just right out of the gate in out-of-conference play. They play South Carolina in Atlanta, I believe, and then they play Vandy at home. They got Old Dominion week 3, and ODU is by no means a layup. Group of 5 guys told me that, so that has to be true. If they can string together some wins like Wofford, NC State, Wake, Georgia Tech, Cal, Louisville, like if they can go 4 of 6 or 5 of 6 there, then I'm wrong. I just think it'll be such an up and down year. I don't know about the consistency level. So I'm going to go under 6.5 on Virginia Tech, and I'm going to go over 6.5 for Pitt. I don't know that the market's pricing them effectively. Like Dylan Lonergan, at his best, should be one of the higher level quarterbacks in this league. I think they've also, if you look at their schedule, Miami at the end of the year could be what makes or breaks this bet. They got a huge dynamics edge against Miami. They've got a late bye. Pitt's got a late bye. So they got a bye in November. That will be Miami's 7th game in a row, and it's the second leg of back-to-back road games for Miami. And it's not like that game you will make or break this, but it could make or break this. I just see a lot of games Pitt should win by 3 points. That's how I think that's going to go. Over 6.5 for Pitt. Well, drum roll, please, for the conference championship prediction. I thought about this, and there's no reason to be a contrarian. I think Clemson is going to win this conference. But I think the team they beat will surprise some people because it's going to be a rematch of week 3. I've got Clemson versus Georgia Tech in the ACC championship game. I feel surprisingly good about it. And I've got Clemson beating Georgia Tech. And if they played yesterday, Clemson would have won by 90 because it sounds like the scrimmage didn't go well down in Atlanta. This team will round into form. It'll be a very good team. I think they may be the talk of the ACC, if not the country. Give me Clemson over Georgia Tech, though. They got to get the job done this year. Well, I mean, they've been getting the job done in the ACC. They got to do more than just that. That's pressure, but I think they're equipped for it. And then, after they win the game, you know what you do? You go to Academy Sports and Outdoors, and they'll probably let you in because, you know, they do that thing where they open up at midnight when you win something. And so, you know, it could be a Clemson hoodie, a hat, a beanie, or you could just be proud of Georgia Tech season and go buy some Georgia Tech gear. My point is, you could want to do that, or you could have a cousin in your life that doesn't even like college football, which makes me question why you talk to that cousin. But if you do, you know, to each his own. You could buy him a fishing rod at Academy Sports and Outdoors. You could buy him a bucket of softballs at Academy Sports and Outdoors, a nice jacket at Academy Sports and Outdoors, a pack of Big League Chew. He's got to have something good in his life. He's not watching college football. Academy Sports and Outdoors is the place to get all that. And if you can't get there in person, academy.com is your stop. We've got a big live audience watching, and I just want to drop in and, try to do a smiley face. There we go, smiley face. Hey, do me a favor. Yeah, we got a ton of people. Hey, just click the like button because right now, well, we got 4,000 or 5,000 in here and like 500 likes. Those are poverty numbers. And we don't want to be poverty. Jesse's got to eat tonight. And believe it or not, his salary is directly tied to the ratio of likes that our videos get. And you may call that unfair, but those are laws of the jungle. That's survival. That's how it happens in this world of YouTube and podcasting. So don't do it for me. You may not even like me. Some of you rage watch this show. That's well documented. Feed Jesse. Jesse ain't done nothing to nobody. Feed Jesse. All right, let's continue. We got a lot of show left. I haven't even gotten to camp intel yet. I haven't even done playoff predictions. I haven't even mentioned this ridiculous, nonsensical playoff expansion proposal. That means we got to hurry up. Big 12 predictions. Yes, 8 teams on the FanDuel preseason odds to win the Big 12 are plus 1,500 or better, which means, yet again, this is going to be an accordion of a conference. The accordion as an instrument is really fascinating because if you expand it, it makes a noise, but if you contract it, it makes a noise. The Big 10 or the Big 12 is the accordion that never expands. There's never separation. It's just always, wow, any given week, this thing could blow up in our face. There has been a new champ in this league each of the last 5 years. Will there be a new one this year? Could be. Could be. Could be Utah. Could be Brigham Young. Could be Baylor. Texas Tech. Hello. I think I know a few things about this league. I think I know quarterback play may be the best in the nation in the Big 12. Do you stop to look at the roster of these players before you just immediately discount this? We got Rocco Becht, who is America's quarterback. We got Jalen Daniels is the key to this conference in many ways because if he's healthy all year, Kansas could win this thing. Like, I'm very, very abnormally high on Kansas if Jalen Daniels is healthy. They finished hot last year. They got the best head coach that no one talks about in the country. And so, you got him. You got Sawyer Robertson at Baylor. Sam Levitt is back again. Devon Dampier. Those are not two different people. I just pronounce it both ways so I know I'm right. Baron Morton, Josh Hoover. There's a very deep roster of quality quarterbacks here. The second thing I know about this league, Texas Tech is the best experiment to watch in the sport this year. Texas Tech went and got a lot of players out of the portal. And yet, I am going to suggest to you that while the rest of the country, the rest of the college football public is going to look at Texas Tech and say, oh, man, they just went and bought a bunch of players, probably a bunch of mercenaries. Half of them don't even know where Lubbock is on a map. They're just there to do their time. I'm telling you that's not the vibe there. You need to take my word for this. I'm telling you from people who have been there more than 1 year, they will swear by the fact that this is the best locker room they've been a part of, and this is the best overall program energy that they've felt. Now, should it work that way? The book says no. The book says you're not supposed to be able to go and take players from all over the country and just toss them in a room and shake it up and love what gets poured out, because there should be a lot of selfishness, a lot of me over we. Historically, that's what the book says should be. I'm just telling you that's not what it is at Texas Tech. Now, with that in mind, I want you to watch their defensive front this year. Everyone's going to talk about the offense. Everyone's going to talk 50,000 feet in the clouds about just the overall portal additions, but they're not going to get specific. Drill down to the defensive front. Watch Texas Tech play the first few weeks of the year. Look at who's playing 2s and 3s rotationally on their defensive front, because you'll notice those guys started for them that last year. You will notice quality players, not bad players, quality players are running with their 2s and 3s now because of the depth they have along the defensive front. I'm telling you they can win games defensively if they need to, and I don't think many people are going to be talking about that. Third thing I think I know. I can't believe how quickly people have chosen to forget about Utah. You remember Kyle Whittingham? Remember Utah back in the day? They used to win all the time. Yeah, that was like 12 months ago when we were saying that. Kyle Whittingham, by the way, has not retired. He's still there. He's still riding that motorcycle around Salt Lake City. Do you feel the way I feel? This is not a Peter Frampton song. I'm saying, do you feel that Utah's kind of just drifted off in the wind and like people don't think of this is a dominant program. Like this is a perennial contender that had one down year. They had a lot of close losses. It's just anytime you have a roster that's not chock full of like 5-star after 5-star, if the wheels get a little wobbly, there is room to go 5-7 or 4-8 and be right back the next year. That's Utah. Utah did what Oklahoma did. It's just everyone's talking about Oklahoma. What do you mean, Josh? Well, Oklahoma went to Washington State, and they got John Mateer, and they got Ben Arbuckle. Well, everyone's praising that concept, me included, because I think it's going to work out. Quarterback and offensive coordinator come in. So you basically import a system, and you don't have to teach the quarterback the system. Well, Dampier and Beck are that for Utah. They came in from New Mexico. They're both very highly thought of. They're just not going to be talked about as much because it's Utah. People have forgotten about Utah, and that is a mistake. I'm not going to suffer from it. That's a mistake. Some favorite win totals of mine in this league, look at Kansas. Kansas over under 6.5. Give me the over on Kansas. Kansas will win 8 games at least this year. Jalen Daniels' health is key here. And to be fair now, I understand what FanDuel's got to do. Jalen Daniels' health has been very erratic. So they've got to price in the possibility that he's not healthy all year. If he's healthy all year, they're going 8 wins minimum. And he has looked very, very good in fall camp. And not that it matters a ton. Actually, it does. They get to play home games at home this year as opposed to driving to Arrowhead Stadium or a soccer facility like they had to do last year. That's a real thing. So give me Kansas over 6.5. Houston, breaking news to some still, is in the Big 12. And not only are they in the Big 12, they're in the Big 12 with an over-under win total of 5.5. And I think they're going over as well. I love the strength of schedule that's on our side here. I love that we've got a second-year staff. And I also love that they get a manageable entrance into league play. Do you know who the quarterback at Houston is? Do you remember Connor Wigman? He's down there. I think Houston could surprise some people this year. We got him with the 67th strength of schedule in the country. So let's take over 5.5 there. I'm going under on West Virginia at 5.5. They got over 70 new players on that roster. I went up there in the spring. I asked Rich Rod, how quickly can it pop? And he was very, very honest. He said, if these guys buy into our way of doing things, we know how to coach football. Like we'll win some games in year one, but he said we're not going to sacrifice long term to try and win 7 games instead of 6 games this year, if that's the way it's going to turn out. I think they're going to struggle. I think they'll be very erratic. I think they'll be very high highs, very low lows. And in the net, I think they're going to go under 5.5 wins. My conference championship prediction in the Big 12 is a rematch of a regular season game. I am going to take the team with the 3rd best odds against the team with the 4th best odds. That's Texas Tech versus Arizona State in the league championship game. And there was this funny thing that happened last year. When Arizona State got to the Big 12 championship game, they were banged up. Like they had critical injuries. I thought they were going to lose. I picked Iowa State. And Arizona State just plays their best ball of the year. And then they go push Texas to the wire in the playoff. Like, Kenny Dillingham may have peaking at the right time figured out. I'm taking Arizona State to repeat as the conference champ here, which will be the first time in half a decade that that's happened. But Arizona State, Texas Tech, I think it's going to be one of the games of the year in season. And unlike the conference championship game out there last year, I think the Big 12 championship game will revert back to being an evergreen instant classic. Because it's the Big 12, I expect nothing less. We got a big announcement to make. I got to pull up the tweet over here. Since the feature was broken today, I couldn't schedule this. Let me tee it up. So if you're new around here, judging by our numbers, hundreds of thousands of you are, and we welcome you to Pate State. We do a tour every year. Okay, I famously, very notably, have a dream job. And it consists of talking about college football for money all year. And then on Saturdays during the fall, we pick which game we want to go to, and we go stand on the sidelines at that game and watch the most entertaining thing that America produces, college football. And then we fly home to Nashville and we talk about it the next night, and then rinse and repeat. Just it's that all year long. Get in town on Friday, go work out in the weight room, go say hey to everyone, eat great food. It's wonderful. I highly recommend it if you can get into that business. We name the tour every year. We had the Renaissance Tour in 2021. We had the Every Given Saturday Tour. We had the Whole New Saturday Tour. We had the Once Upon a Saturday Tour. And so I thought to myself, what is the greatest day of the entertainment calendar in a week? And it is Saturday. However, the word Saturday being in the tour, I thought was getting a little monotonous. We will always celebrate Saturday here, but I thought to myself, maybe I want to course correct a little bit. Maybe we want to have a name for a tour that doesn't involve Saturday, even though we do it on Saturday every year. And so that's what we've done. I had thousands of suggestions from you guys. I appreciate that. I think we have 10 good candidates that we can choose from. But we have gone a little bit different direction. Oh, man. Production assistant Tyler made the logo. It looks great. I am more excited to show you the logo than I am to tell you the name. So this fall, starting on August 30th in week 1, the Fall Don't Lie Tour will hit the road, and our first stop will be, and it's no great mystery, Columbus, Ohio, for Texas at Ohio State. There is a huge spot in my heart for noon kickoffs. You know that, even though the rest of you hate it. I love it because I can get home that night. And it just so happens that this is number 1 versus number 2 in the JP poll. And it just so happens that Jerry Emig is on his retirement tour up there, and I have to go see him at least one more time. We love Uncle Jerry. And so the Fall Don't Lie Tour, look at Chuggy. Look at the autumn leaves. On the logo's great. If you're listening on podcast, just imagine an amazing logo with a cartoon train, the words Fall Don't Lie, and 4 autumn leaves, which I have always thought should be spelled Leafs instead of leaves, inexplicably with the V. That's a side note. The Fall Don't Lie Tour is going to be on Campi coast to coast this year. I can't wait for it. For those of you asking, we will be slapping that on a T-shirt, and it will be coming to a Pate State store near you. Side note, the Pate State store is about to reopen. So, could not be any more excited about it if it were my job to be excited about it, because it is, and I am. Let's move on. Fall camp intel. We've got it fresh out of the oven. I have been on the road all week. I have been at several different fall camps. I've watched practices. I've watched scrimmages. Let's talk about it. First up, Georgia. Latest intel out of there confirms what I have suspected, and that is they may not go 12-0. They may lose 1 game. They may lose 4 games. They will not lose for the same reasons they lost last year. They have been maniacal, and they have been very, very aggressive at course correcting the problems they had last year, which is not a shot because I think this is the best coaching staff in the country, top to bottom. They will not lose this year because they couldn't run the ball. They will not lose because of porous offensive line play. I don't think that'll happen. I don't think they'll lose because receivers can't catch a cold. I don't think that'll happen again this year. In fact, I think wide receiver may be the alpha position group on this team. And I can tell you confidently, I've never said that about a Kirby Smart team. I've never said that about a Georgia team, I don't think. So I know the dynamic has changed there. And It's very nuanced when you talk about this stuff. Last year, Georgia had really good personnel. They always will. They recruit at a certain level. There is a thing that happens, though, in college football when you have multiple third, fourth, fifth year guys. They don't stop working hard, but there's almost like a redundancy to it at that point. And elite players go to Georgia for 3 years and they're in the NFL. So when you're there a fourth or a fifth year, you're great and you're a glue guy and you're a program guy, but sometimes the passion and the fire and the edge you have to win these knife fights is not there. And I think that bit them at times last year. And I don't think that'll be the same problem they have this year. If they got problems, there'll be new problems. But I trust the passion and hunger of this team. I trust it implicitly. So look, you may watch guys blow a coverage or blow an assignment. It's not because they were unwilling to go over the cliff to do it. I think the competitive consistency will be at a higher level, wire to wire this year for Georgia. And I also think the offensive line and ground game, if the intel that we're getting out of fall camp is any indication, it'll be good. It'll be plenty good enough to win with. Now, the follow-up to that, and I'm thinking about that offensive line, I said in my SEC predictions, I think the Georgia offensive line is the most important position group in this conference because if they are A- or better on offensive line, they probably win the league title, or at the very least, they're right there playing someone for the league title. And it also impacts Florida, it impacts Bama, it impacts Ole Miss, it impacts Texas because they play them all. However, if I'm wrong and they're just inconsistent or maybe they have injuries like they did last year, they're not going to be in Atlanta, and it's going to open the door for someone else. So I am very, very bullish on them. And by that, I mean not having the same problems they had last year. Just the wide receiver room, I don't think America's really up on this. Georgia fans know. They've been paying a lot of attention. That's a nasty wide receiver room. And it may be that is like the alpha position group on that team. It's not finesse, guys, is what I'm trying to tell you. Like even Branch, the kid they got from USC, he is very quick. But I'm just telling you, there's no one that's shying away from stalk blocking in that wide receiver room. Colby Young's back. So they have got a really good assortment of talent in the receiver room. And they got a lot of, dogs in many different uses of the word in the receiver room. So I know that they love to clip me hating on that team around there, even though I never do. But I'm not giving you any of that tonight. I'm pretty high on Georgia. Next up, I was at Oregon. What's tonight? Sunday? I went up to Oregon Friday, hung out with them, watched practice. I am in a weird position with Oregon. I think that's the best collection of talent Lanning's had since he's been there. But yet there are some hinge points that are going to determine whether they're capable of competing for the Big Ten championship this year. It's not Dante Moore, actually. Dante Moore I feel great about. Dante Moore is going to be a stud. So I got very little question about him. He played at UCLA, came back to Oregon, sat a year. He fits well in the system. My questions and my potential hinge points are, I really wonder if that wide receiver room is going to have the depth that it needs to it, the versatility that it needs to it. I very much believe in DeCorian Moore. I think they got everything they thought that they were getting with him. But just how that wide receiver room shakes out and how many other guys you have capable of, like a 650 receiving yard type year. Any given week, they could go off for 180. Like, that's the kind of receiver room, that's the kind of depth they need. Oregon's not going to have, like, another guy that goes off for 1,500 yards, like a Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith. That guy's not in there. If he is in there, it's DeCorian Moore. But behind him, what I kind of watched with them is I watched how many different guys do I see that could be a virtual non-factor for a couple of weeks on the stat sheet and then have 6 catches for 189 and 2 touchdowns. That is one of the hinge points. And the other hinge point to me is running back depth because I kind of had an idea in the spring that I thought I knew how the pecking order, the depth would roll out there. I think it's probably a little bit more by committee than I would have said in spring, which is okay. That's why you recruit. It's not. Sometimes when you say we got to go running back by committee, it means, oh no, we don't have anyone who can play. That's not the case. What it means is you don't have one player infinitely above and beyond the rest of the room. That could just mean you got 3 B+ level players. It doesn't automatically have to mean, oh, since we don't have an A-, we got a bunch of C's. That doesn't have to be the case. But they got a lot of good players, man. The offensive line's a strength there. And so you're going to give Dante Moore every chance to succeed. You're going to be giving those tailbacks every chance to succeed. You're going to give that wide receiver room every chance to sort itself out. But, I mean, it's not a shock. Oregon's a good team. It's a really good collection of talent. And it doesn't hurt this year the way last year ended. That doesn't hurt motivation either. Went to Alabama this weekend, watched them scrimmage Saturday, and I had a towel thrown over my head the whole day to avoid just a crisis of a sunburn situation on the show tonight. The first thing I want to talk to you about is you probably heard about Jam Miller, the number 1 tailback there, getting hurt. Candidly, I didn't know it had happened, and I was on the field watching the whole thing. It sounds like it is, well, they called it an upper body, so I'll leave it at upper body. I mean, I think most of the message board culture has pretty much figured out what it is. The important thing is I don't expect him to be lost for the whole year. I expect him, based on what I've heard, to be ready probably for league play, which I think for them, looking at the schedule here, is the Georgia game, September 27th. That can change, but I expect him to be at or close to ready to go by the time they open league play. The thing that stood out the most to me about Alabama is people are right when they talk about the depth and quality of depth, and that secondary is good, man. To the point where if they were to show their scrimmages on TV, it would make sense. But since they don't show them on TV and they're kind of close to the public, little snapshots and like bits and pieces get out, and it's like out of context, and you find out, oh, so-and-so started today. That means the depth chart has changed. No, it's, at least as far as I can tell, that's not really what it is. They just got more guys than they have starting positions for, and so they can afford to rotate and experiment a little bit in especially a scrimmage situation. And so, you got guys running with the 1s who may not start against Florida State. You got guys running with the 2s that may start against Florida State. Here's what I know, though. I didn't tell much of a difference between them. That's what I know. They got freshmen on that team that I know good and well aren't going to start unless there are injuries that could start at most places in the league this year, including places that are known for defense. So that Alabama secondary is good. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I did. That secondary is good, and that defense is good. They had a physical scrimmage yesterday. They hit. Dude, they get after it in scrimmages. If you were to go and watch and someone told you, hey, man, Saban is still the head coach here, you'd say, yeah, this feels like a Nick Saban practice. It makes me nervous watching it because, I know, hey, you're trying to simulate a game-like condition here, but this is not a game. And if guys get hurt here, they can't play in a game. But yet then on the other side, there's only one way to get ready to play a game, and that is to simulate game conditions. But intensity, the hitting, the tackling, off the charts. To me, it's the best kind of scrimmage you can see. I know I was driving back home last night, and I was listening to some podcasts. I was talking to some folks, and, people will hear, someone threw an incompletion, someone throws a pick, someone didn't score, and they draw conclusions from scrimmages. Here's what you want to come away from a scrimmage thinking. This team could win a game 19-13, and this team could win a game 41-31. Because there is so much unpredictability in a football season. What I can tell you about Alabama, from what I've seen in the spring and what I saw yesterday, is I'm fully confident that team could hold a team to 12 if they need to, and they could score 40 if they need to. That's not a guarantee they'll win anything or lose anything. It's a guarantee that they're a very dynamic team, and those are the ones that give themselves the best shot to win at the end of the year. So that's a very impressive team. Very impressive. It's no mystery why Ty Simpson won that competition. I think the quarterback depth situation is really interesting too. I think where they'll end up getting, I believe in time, is if they're in the fourth quarter and let's just say they needed to put someone in. I think it would be Austin Mack. I think they'll end up getting to a place where if they knew they were going to be without Ty Simpson on Sunday, and they had 6 days to get ready for Saturday, I think they'll get to a place where that's Keelan Russell. And that could be sooner rather than later. But they got three quarterbacks that they could really win with. Like they don't have a Heisman contender on that team. At least I don't think they do. They got three pretty good quarterbacks on that team. Speaking of quarterbacks, C.J. Carr, Kenny Minchie is still not decided at Notre Dame. And it sounds like they really kind of wanted to make that announcement after the second scrimmage, but someone's got to win the job. And according to Marcus Freeman, no one's won the job yet. So we're watching that. Remember, they open against Miami on a Sunday night in 2 weeks from tonight. Julian Sayin, Lincoln Kienholtz at Ohio State. I still maintain that I think it's going to be Julian Sayin, but again, got to win the job. Now, there are theories out there that Ryan Day knows who's going to start, and he just is toying with the media and the fan base, and I have a different theory on that. I think many times there's a guy who the coaches feel will win the job. I think this coaching staff has believed since spring that Julian Sayin will win this job. I think they believe he'll win the job today. He's got to win the job. So it's not disingenuous if you're in that position to not have named a starter yet. Doesn't matter if you've thought the same guy's going to win it since January. He's got to win it. And if he hadn't won it yet, you don't make an announcement for the sake of aesthetics. You don't do that. Even if you open against Texas, you don't do that. Joey Aguilar seems like he's trending to be the starting quarterback at Tennessee. Opinion hadn't changed there. I think it'll be him. And big news out of Lexington. This is not news in a sense that it just happened. It's news that the season's drawing closer, so you're going to find out. The Zach Calzada era is back. Calzada has transferred to Kentucky, and he will be the starting quarterback there. He was at Incarnate Word, I think. So was Cam Ward. Cam Ward 2.0 at Kentucky. I'm the first one to say it. I will be the last one to say it, but I'm definitely the first one to say it. And BYU update. Bear Bachmeier is going to likely be their starting quarterback. That's a true freshman, and that's all we have on that for now on the quarterback front. So fall camp intel is coming very, 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 very hot and heavy right now. It's immunity. I knew it was an immunity the second it started to come out of my mouth. They're watching it in Athens, Ohio. They're watching it tonight in LaGrange, Georgia. They're watching it and us in Provo, Utah, and we appreciate it. Listen, it is imperative that you do a couple of things. The first thing is subscribe to the channel because 55% of you are not subscribed, and it's free and it helps us to keep the lights on. So that's just a favor that I'm asking. The second thing you need to be doing is make sure you're following on socials. This is not just a generic call to action. I'm getting to something here. What are we? Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at Josh Pate CFB. This week especially, you need to make sure you're following. First off, because we're going on the road again, and there's behind-the-scenes stuff that I don't show you on the show that you only get there. The second thing you need to know is, I think we have several announcements coming this week. And frankly, I don't know when they're all going to happen. I know there'll be one tomorrow about a collaboration that we're going to be doing all year. I think that'll be around noon. Don't hold me to that. There are partnerships that we're entering into that are very, very big. It's not changing the show. The show is staying the same. I'm talking about stuff above and beyond just the show, or in addition to the show. Those announcements are about to roll out because football season's here. And I mean, we've known about them for a long time. I have not legally been allowed to announce them yet. Those are going to happen very quickly and obviously not tonight. So make sure you're following at Josh Pate CFB because that's normally where you find that stuff out. Okay, I got things to do here. I'm about to do my playoff predictions. That's just buried in the show. And then we're going to end the show with this ridiculousness about playoff expansion, saved for the end of the show where that belongs. It's time to predict the playoff. I've talked about conference winners. In fact, I have predicted all of the conferences. Like I got Penn State over Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. I got Bama over Texas in the SEC championship game. I'm taking Clemson over Georgia Tech. Surprise inclusion there in the ACC championship game. And give me Arizona State over Texas Tech, repeat champ there in the Big 12. Now, just off of that, here are the questions I'm asking myself. Where do Oregon and Texas end up? The Big Ten title game loser, the SEC title game loser. Because remember, the playoff's different this year. So the playoff last year was the top four seeds had to go to conference champs, and it was really jacked up, and it messed the bracket up. Well, that rule is gone now. So we could have Texas, go into conference championship Saturday number 1 in the country, and they lose to Bama and they fall to like 3. Oregon could go in number 2 and they could lose to Penn State and fall to 4. And my point is, we could go into the playoffs and the number 1, 2, 3, and 4, I think this would have been the case last year, right, Jesse? They would just be SEC and Big Ten teams, which would piss everyone off, but it would be competitively right if that were to happen that way. Well, that's the first thing I'm asking myself. The second thing I'm asking myself, ACC, are you getting 2 teams in? The Big 12, are you getting 2 teams in? Does Texas Tech still make it in like SMU was able to do in the ACC last year? Does Georgia Tech make it in? Could you have a Miami that's sitting there at 10-2, and they're not in the conference title game, but they're looking to be an at-large? Don't know. That's what I'm asking myself. Where's Notre Dame? It's always assumed Notre Dame, if they go 10-2, they're in. I believe that. Did they go 10-2 or better? Got a lot of really tricky games at the beginning of the year for a team that doesn't have a starting quarterback announced yet. And then the evergreen question in this format is, what's the landscape relative to the SEC 9-3 teams? Last year, no 3-loss team got in. People, for some reason, took that as forever gospel that no 3-loss team will ever get in. I guarantee you a 3-loss team, even if we were to keep the playoff at 12, would eventually get in. If Florida's 9-3, they're getting in. If Oklahoma's 9-3, they're getting in. Those 2 with those schedules are getting in. If it's like Georgia or Alabama that's 9-3, if South Carolina's 9-3, Ole Miss, we'll see. The seeding projections, I waste no more time here. This is how I see the playoff playing out 1 through 12. I got Penn State winning the Big Ten. I've got them as the number 1 overall seed. I got Alabama winning the SEC, number 2 overall seed. Bama beats Texas in Atlanta. Texas drops no further than 3. Oregon loses to Penn State. They only drop to number 4. Clemson, your ACC champ, I've got at number 5. I got Notre Dame right there at 6. Ohio State, very competitive in the Big Ten this year. I think they're a 7 seed. I have the Florida Gators making the playoff as an 8 seed. I'm very high on them. I've got Georgia right there as the 9 seed. That probably flips based on how that head-to-head turns out. Arizona State as your Big 12 champ, I've got as the 10 seed. Allow me to clear my voice. As the biggest Nebraska Cornhusker supporter in the entire city of Nashville, Tennessee, bar none, I've got Nebraska making the playoff at number 11. And then I've got Boise in the playoff as the G5 representative at number 12. How would this look, you might ask, in bracket form? Well, it's interesting because of what the first round matchups would be. If that is the bracket, and I have little reason to doubt that it will be, this is very, very non-controversial, as we all know. We would have Georgia going to Gainesville, Florida to play a playoff game in the first round. So there's that. They won't give me that game on campus for the regular season version. Even in years where Jacksonville Stadium is being renovated, they're playing it at a neutral site. It's insane. Well, I am forcing them to play the Georgia-Florida game in either Athens or Gainesville because I'm going to put it in the first round of the playoff. I got Clemson hosting Boise State in round 1. I have got Ohio State hosting Arizona State in round 1. And I've got Nebraska going to Notre Dame. So cold weather on the road to play cold weather. And I know if you're listening on podcast, you can't see this, but I don't love the spot that the 1 seed is in yet again. This year it's Penn State, and they get their bye. They would be awaiting what is going to be a red-hot Florida or a red-hot Georgia that probably lost some games in the regular season, but then got their act together late. That's how they made the playoff. And it's strikingly similar to what Ohio State was last year. And Penn State is awaiting the winner of Georgia versus Florida. Oregon sits there in a much better situation. They get probably Clemson. But just think about this. Let me just say this out loud for the podcast crowd. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. Look at the potential second round now that we fixed the seeding and it's not jacked up where Boise's got a 3 seed and Arizona State's got a 4 seed. Why? Just because they won a conference. No. If we're going straight seeding, do you understand our second round could be Georgia versus Penn State, Clemson versus Oregon, Texas versus Notre Dame and Alabama versus Ohio State. Has there ever been a better postseason week ever? I don't think so. I'm including the NFL there, by the way. That would be utter insanity. So, I don't know that I want to hear arguments, but I'm sure there will be arguments. If anybody thinks it's wrong, it's an opinion. But if you still think it's wrong, I want you to make sure you tell me it's an idiotic take, and that's fine, and say the bracket's wrong and whatnot. Make sure you give me your predictions. Don't tell me it's wrong. Too many grown men are using the laughing emojis. Too many grown men are making their arguments with emojis. It's a critical problem that we as a society have to tackle this college football season. Use your big boy words, not in all caps either. Type it out, run it through spell check, and tell me your 1 through 12 so that we can go back and compare in December. That's how I see the playoff playing out. You can go to FanDuel and bet every one of these things right now. You think Nebraska is going to make the playoff like I do? You can go bet Nebraska to make the playoff, and I know that because I've done it. You can go to FanDuel because they're the exclusive odds provider of Pate State, and we appreciate how varied and nuanced they are in the information they give us this time of year, but we also appreciate that we know a lot of you are new customers or you're considering signing up. So I ask you to do that responsibly, and if you can't do that responsibly, do not sign up and do not bet a dime of your money or anyone else's money. But if you're able to and you have disposable income, you got a little entertainment nest egg over here, and you're a new user, I just want to let you know there's free money to be had. Well, basically free money. So there's a QR code on your screen. You can either use that or go to fanduel.com/JoshPate. But if you bet $5 and win, you can go bet Penn State to beat Roast Beef Tech for all I care. Bet $5 on the money line. If you win, you're taking home $300 in bonus bets. So I am trying to give you the cheat code to this because there's no caveat there. There is some fine print, but it does not say who you can and can't bet. Bet that $5 on the most sure thing you could ever find, and they're sending you $300 in bonus bets. FanDuel.com/JoshPate, or just go through that QR code if you're watching on YouTube. Okay, last thing in the show tonight, where it belongs. Bradley, show me the tweet. I was asked earlier today, well, actually, hey, Bradley, here's a good endpoint for you. That old Smokey, good close friend of the program, said, please tell me you're going to talk about the latest Big Ten playoff format shenanigans tonight. And I responded, yes, I will talk about them. I'm going to put them at the very end of the show where that kind of nonsense belongs. So here we are. It's the end of the show, and I am going to talk about it for just a second. Here's what's happening according to everyone who reports on these sorts of things. The Big Ten has found it necessary to do what they call socializing a new format of the playoff. And what is this format? Well, depending on who you listen to, it is either a 24 or a 28 team playoff format. And for my visual learners out there, the fine folks over at Reddit CFB actually put together a graphic of what a 28 team playoff or a 24 team playoff, I guess, would have looked like last year. It's 28, right, Jesse? Yeah, that's a 28 team playoff. You know, because that's what we need in college football. It's okay. Your audio didn't stop working. I was at a loss for words a long time ago. And when you put the visual in front of me like this, it is very shocking, you know, to suggest Alabama's playing a game at Army in December because we need to see that to crown a champion. So I need to say something, and I'm going to try and be respectful about it because at the end of the day, we all have opinions on sports, and it's not the end of the world. We can go our separate ways, or we can agree to disagree and go the similar way and go to lunch and eat together. If you think that's good for college football, you and I don't see the same sport the same way. We are not looking through the same worldview, magnifying glass lens at college football. This wouldn't even be awesome as a standalone product, much less awesome attached to the regular season, because obviously of what it does to the regular season. There are some people out there, they're not stupid people. You know, remember Mima's age-old axiom that casual people never say smart things. How did she word this? Casual people Smart people can say casual things. Casual people never say smart things. So there are some smart people who could look at that and they could say, oh, who says no to more football? The same people who like having money, but they say no to endlessly printing money. Because when you endlessly print money, you devalue the money. When you love football, but then you play endless amounts of football, especially in consequence type situations like playoff spots being on the line, you devalue the actual regular season of football. And there happen to be some of us who believe that the regular season of college football is the best thing about college football. Many people think that. So when you suggest that we ought to play 37 playoff games at the end just because it's more games, that's dumb. Also, there's another group, there are a lot of these, who say, but if you have more playoff spots, you put more meaning on the games. There are more meaningful games in the regular season. No, there aren't. No, there aren't. What you took is you took some games and you reverse engineered meaning onto them because someone's playing for the 12 seed. Or in this case, someone's got the, I'm going to say this out loud so you understand how dumb it is. This team's got an outside shot at the 26 seed if they win this game here. You know, if they lose, they're 6-6. But if they win, they're 7-5, and they got a shot at being the 23 seed in the playoff. Voila! Meaning on the game. That's not meaning. In fact, we don't even have more meaning on more games in the 12-team model that makes sense. What we do have is we do have games that technically have playoff implications on them now, whereas they wouldn't have in a 4-team model or a 6 or an 8-team model, but they can't win the whole thing. What you did is you took teams like Ohio State or a Georgia or an Alabama. You know, there are a few teams capable of actually winning the whole thing any given year. You took the meaning off of their games. Ohio State can lose 2 games, still make the playoff and go on and win the whole thing. And so there's not that urgency baked into their games anymore because we had to go put it on Kansas State versus TCU, featuring teams that aren't capable of winning the whole thing if they get in, but we're going to convince ourselves that meaning is meaning, and like your better judgment knows what the truth is. But playoff expansionists count on you to ignore your better judgment. They count on you to just believe, oh, meaning is meaning. If this game has playoff implications, we created more meaning for more games. No, you didn't. You just removed meaning from games featuring teams capable of winning the whole thing, and you manufactured it by tossing it onto games featuring teams that can't win the whole thing. That was always dumb. Anyway, I do have good news. This isn't going to happen. That's the good news. There is one goal here. To explain the whole Big Ten playoff expansion proposal nonsense, the goal is not for them to get to a 24 or a 28-team playoff. The goal is to leak that so that they can actually get to what they want, which is the 16-team model. You may ask yourself, well, that doesn't make any sense. How's that, Josh? Well, it is Overton window at its best. And the Big Ten pays PR strategists and lobbying firms and marketing types a lot of money to come up with this stuff. So the Big Ten wants the 16-team AQ model. I actually have thought the 14-team model wasn't half bad, but the Big Ten sucks at messaging, and so they lost me. Like I'm over here on an island. They're not good at explaining the merits of it. They tried at Big Ten Media Days. They failed. Instead, they just went and took shots at the SEC and said all kind of dumb stuff. So I said, forget it. You guys handle your own business. Like I was willing to do business with them. I thought Tony Petitti's 14-team model would be good, but they couldn't leave well enough alone. So anyway, the rest of the country hated it even if I liked it. So the Big Ten had an idea. They wanted a 16-team playoff, AQ model, pre-guarantee most of the slots to certain conferences, and most of the country hated it. So the question becomes, we've got an idea that's bad. Most of the country hates it. How do you get a bad idea across the finish line to people who hate the bad idea? And the answer is, give them an infinitely worse idea. So let's say your Uncle Frederick says, oh, family vacation time this year. You know where we're going? Spin the globe. Vroom. St. Louis, Missouri for the entire week. Nobody wants to vacation in St. Louis, Missouri. What is Uncle Frederick to do? Buy tickets for the entire family to go to Key West? He can't afford it. I mean, God bless Uncle Frederick. Like he lived a good life, but he can't afford that. So what Uncle Frederick does to make the bad idea seem less bad is he says, fine, we're going to Kosovo. See how you like that. And then the kids start crying. And then Uncle Frederick sits there and stonewalls for a little while, and they cry and they cry and they cry, and he goes, okay, St. Louis it is. And the kids are dumb enough to say, all right, I guess that's not so bad. It is bad. Nobody wants to vacation in St. Louis. I, a storm chaser, love visiting St. Louis, but you don't want a spring break in St. Louis. But when Kosovo's put on the table as if it's actually a legitimate option that Uncle Frederick is actually considering, no, give us St. Louis. The Big Ten thinks you're stupid. I'm just telling you, these people, sweater vest as tight as it can be, glasses pushed up as firmly on the nose as it can be, they think you're an idiot. So they look at you as if you're a child that won't eat your carrots. And they say, well, hey, let's put salad in front of him. Oh, I don't want salad. Give me the carrots. I don't want this 16-team playoff. It seems dumb. Well, what would you think about 28 teams? No. All right, well, 16 then? Okay, I guess so. They think you're that stupid. That's what's going on here. So the question is not whether we're going to have a 28-team playoff. We're not. The question is, are people dumb enough to cave on 16? You know my thoughts on it. I didn't think that it was half bad, but they've done such a poor job of explaining the merits of the AQ model that they have resorted to this. And what this is leaking a proposal that has no legs to it. You'll notice every reporter had it at the same time, in many cases using the exact same phraseology. Shockingly. So, that's not going to happen. It's an Overton window play, always has been, always will be the way that upper-level college athletics works, because the people who run this sport actively hate this sport. They think you're an idiot, and you are really a profiteering center more than you are a fan. But you know what? I think a little more highly of us than that. I think we'll be okay. Just leave us alone. I think we'll be okay. That's our show tonight. Nice solid hour and a half. I would like to thank all of you. I would like to thank our entire staff and crew, because as you've noticed, we've moved into an entirely new studio. The crew is out in a production truck. They're not even in here. And the show has been executed seamlessly, and that is not easy. All I have to do is sit here and talk. They got the hard job. So appreciate them. Appreciate you guys for being patient. For Director Bradley, for producer Jesse, entire crew, I'm Josh Pate. We'll be at Penn State Tuesday. The show will go on probably at the same time as it always does. So have a great start to your week. Until then, God bless.